We're all skeptical in the world when we meet an ultimate salesperson, sales professional, because we know you have all the techniques, all the nuances, and all the ways to connect. People don't buy what you sell, they buy what you believe. Why you do what you do and what you believe is your story. And that's what we talk about in my book, Story Selling. That's my course. That's what I want to do with everybody in Andy Elliott's army. I just know the value in taking the incredible skill set and formula and techniques and time-tested solutions that Andy has honed all these years. Everybody listening and watching this podcast has extraordinary experiences. Your heart's different than my heart. Your significance is different than my significance. Let's just be honest. You don't compete against others. You compete against what you're capable of. Your life matters as much as mine.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Leadership Podcast. Today I got my man, Dan Clark. I'm going to tell you guys something. So Dan is a legend when it comes to public speaking. He's one of the best. He's been speaking for decades now. And man, I wanted to bring him in to share the expertise. We're going to talk about how to become a great public speaker and monetize it. So
I love it.
Yeah, number one, bro. Welcome to the studio, man. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Brendan. You're a good man. You're one of those relentless souls who has the ability to connect with people because you make us feel important, and I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
And we're all skeptical in the world when we meet an ultimate salesperson, sales professional, because we know you have all the techniques, all the nuances, and all the ways to connect. But my ultimate compliment to you, bro, is that you're the same off stage as you are on stage. It's not a show, and this is the true man that you are. So it's actually an honor for me.
It's special hyping me up, man.
No,
Hey, at the end of the day, it's like I always say this, right? For me and my brand, like the number one thing is integrity and trust. So like that's why I post on social media all the time, and I do what I do. My ultimate goal is honestly to win everybody over, whether it's now or 10 years from now, because I'm so consistent. And like over time, dude, people just see like the real people, they stick around. So I appreciate that.
I'm a songwriter. I've got some hit songs. I've got some gold records in country music. Yeah. And when we talk about the significance of storytelling and story selling, when we talk about the significance of communication, I always remind people about the power that comes in thinking like a hit songwriter. Because if you think what sells the song, it's the hook. It's that punchline.
Yeah.
My buddy Tim Nichols, he wrote "Live Like You're Dying" for Tim McGraw. We've got "The Dance" by Garth Brooks. I could have missed the pain, but then I had to miss the dance. It's that hook. So I write stories with hooks, with punchlines, and one of my very best lyrics of a hit song called "Real Man" is "I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again." And that's basically what you just said. So to capture that in a nutshell, in a punchline, in that money line, that hook, that's the way you make everybody feel. I've watched you interact in a social setting without you knowing that I was watching and listening in. And I really believe that if you can focus in on what your MO is, and that you're consistent off stage, on stage, that you can really answer through your actions who you are and what you're trying to do with this personal and professional relationship. So I agree.
That's right.
I want everyone to leave this podcast saying, "I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again."
Boom. Let's go, baby. Perfect way to kick this bad boy up.
Well, let me bring something else up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've been a professional speaker now for 4 decades, like you said. And I was the guy in the Reagan White House who took Mrs. Reagan's Just Say No program to all 50 states way before you were born. So between 1983 and 1989, I spoke in 3 high schools every day, every high school in the state of Arizona, every high school in so many states, 3 high schools every day, 15 a week. And then I would do 100 teacher and services on the weekend, and then 100 college university campuses.
Yep.
Every year between 83 and 89 to millions of teenagers and young adults. And then I transitioned into the corporate arena. I've worked with most of the Fortune 500 companies, most of the teams in the NFL. I'm in the National Professional Speakers Hall of Fame, and one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the world. I'm a really big deal. I just wanted everybody to know that. But my whole point is, once I made the transition to the corporate arena, regardless if I'm talking to teenagers, young adults, or Fortune 500 or military commands, the message requests have never changed, bro. In 40 years, they've never changed. They want to talk about pure motivation, decisive motivation, as I call it.
Yeah.
They want to talk about change all the time.
Yeah.
So I get on a pre-event call with the event planner. What do you want me to talk about? Oh, change. There's so much change. We got to change. We got to innovate.
Yeah.
But to your point, bro, one of the things that has established my unique factor is I come in and I say, I want to talk about things that have not changed.
Mm.
I want to talk about things that never change, that are generational. We don't have to discuss what a millennial is different, how a millennial is different than a Gen X or a baby boomer like me. Let's focus in on what we have in common, guiding principles, core values, ideas that have never changed, that will never change. So, for example, if I'm working with Amazon,
Yeah.
there's certain things that will never change. People want a wide variety of product choices.
Yep.
They want really fast delivery and service, and they want low prices. Those three things will never change in Amazon. So if you can focus all your resources and energy on things that don't change, you can accelerate your business, you can accelerate your relationships faster than anything.
I love that.
So I only bring that up because what did you say? You're about trust.
Yeah.
You're about integrity. Those things never change. We could cut through the clutter of all these different so-called strategies and the new ideas of how to accelerate sales and customer experience. And that's just all frosting on this cake. We got to just dig into those things that have never changed, and that's I guess where we connect. That's why I resonate with Andy, even though he doesn't. I have this bro crush on Andy. I wish he would reciprocate, but
Hey, man.
I think I pissed him off when I asked him if it was a spray-on tan or if his steroids worked better than mine. I ought to get more listeners this episode.
I love it, dude. Let's go. Well, first of all, Elliott Army reciprocates, dude. We freaking love some old Dan Clark, man. Come on, dog. I wish we had a little soundboard to be like, yeah, let's go. So let's talk about speaking, right? Because that's your profession.
Yes, sir.
That's your skill that you've mastered. And I've seen it in action. Like, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you in is because I've actually seen you speak multiple times. And the more I go in this game, the more I'm like, it's a huge skill.
Mm.
What do you have to add to that? Like, as far as speaking, what is speaking done for you, and what does it do for coaches and like guys that want to grow?
Okay, so let's talk about common ground. So, if you go onto Andy Elliott's website and you ask yourself or ask ChatGPT, what does the Elliott Group do, or whoever your source of truth is, I think what resonates with me is Andy, he waves that flag. You do as his number one sales professional. That Andy promises that no matter if you're a beginning sales professional or a seasoned vet, he can take you to the next level and change and elevate, accelerate your skills in one day. Yeah. Well, I used to be an alpine ski racing champion back in the day, and the two guys who won more gold and silver medals for the United States Olympic ski team are twin brothers, Phil and Steve Mayer. They're dear friends of mine. And after retirement, they have a ski school in Keystone, Colorado, and their entire sales mantra is, it doesn't matter if you're a beginning skier or an Olympic champion, we can take you to the next level. So I appreciate your question, because it doesn't matter where you are in that communication scale. If you learn the proper skill set, the mindset, the heart set, and the skill set, you got to have the whole thing. You got to have
mindset, heart set, skill set.
Skill set. You got to have ethos, pathos, logos, mythos. You got to know how to communicate before you can ever think of yourself as being a professional speaker or even a good public speaker. So we get back to what we're talking about, the fundamentals that have never changed, that were the same for Abraham Lincoln, for Winston Churchill. They were the same for George Washington when he was trying to fire up his ragtag troops to get fired up to go and win that battle around Delaware that turned the entire course, changed the course of our Revolutionary War. It allows us to be free to talk right now.
That's right.
It's all about their ability to communicate.
Yeah.
So the Nazis just bombed Britain in the Battle of Britain. They're just decimating that beautiful city, and Winston Churchill's forced into an underground bunker. And his only source of communication with his public is a microphone. Now, we learned through COVID that the toughest thing that any of us can do is learn to make love with the camera. You got to look at a little green dot at the top of your computer screen and try to connect. Try to reach through the lens and grab that person's heart and mind, connect them and communicate and get them to laugh and think and feel and cry. That's tough.
Yeah.
Well, Winston Churchill gets on his microphone and says one of the most powerful things that I've quoted for years. He says it's not enough to say I will do my best. We must succeed in doing that which is necessary. In other words, don't frickin' make any excuses. We got to beat these guys. We have to win this war.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak German. I don't want to speak Japanese. We're in for the whole. So when we go into that communication game, we have to change our mindset of answering why is this important to us? Because if it's not, you're never going to change. You're never going to listen. You're never going to experiment. You're never going to explore. And then we start using excuses. Oh, it's not me. I'm shy. I can't do that. I'm not a speaker.
Yeah.
And then we go into the Guinness Book of World Records or whoever they're quoting, and they say the number one fear of people is the fear of speaking in public, and they say it's higher than spiders and the fear of falling. And I'm like, this is the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard. The number one fear of people is not speaking well in public. When you're prepared, you shall not fear. So
exactly.
Let's get back to the fundamentals. What we have to do is, number one, figure out who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not a chameleon. We got to know who we are. Let me share a quick story. So I'm speaking at a national convention in San Francisco. I'm on the front row waiting to be introduced. The CEO's up on stage, about 5,000 folks in his company, and he has one pompous windbag. It's all about him. And fundamental message number one of being a great speaker and communicator, it's never about you. It's always about the other person. That's one of your qualities. That's one of Andy's qualities. I watched him in a social setting.
I love that.
Seek to bless, not impress. So if we speak and everybody leaves dazzled with us, we blew it. But if they leave dazzled with themselves, knowing that they're, no matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future, there's so many things you still can do, then we've been a powerful communicator. Okay, so we got to know who we are. So I'm in the front row. This pompous windbag's up on stage. It's clearly all about him. There's a vacant seat next to me. Else in the side door. The ballroom opens and this young lady walks in, hustling and bustling, things in her arms.
Yeah.
She sits down. She says, "Are you Dan Clark?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's your name?" She says, "Yolanda." I said, "What do you do?" She says, "I'm the administrative assistant to the CEO up on stage." And I said, "How's that going for you?" And she rolls her eyes. And I said, "You're late. Can I buy you a watch?" And she says, "You're not funny." Shh. And all of a sudden he finishes and she's invited to take the stage to sing our national anthem.
Nice.
Now I know this podcast is evergreen, but I've been downrange 8 times, Iraq, Afghanistan, firing up our troops. I work with all the top military senior advisors in the White House. I was a Pentagon appointee on public speaking communications. This is important to me. And we just watched the Canadians tee up against the USA hockey team in Montreal. Mm-hmm. And when they started singing the national anthem and the Canadian fans started booing what happened to our USA team, 2 of which are brothers, maybe 3.
Yeah.
They dropped their gloves. There were 3 major brawls in the first 13 seconds of the hockey match. Mm-hmm. Don't frickin' mess with my country. Don't mess with my Star Spangled Banner. Yeah. So all of a sudden, Yolanda's invited to take the stage. And I don't know how many of your podcast listeners or viewers are old enough to remember 1991 Super Bowl. So we're engaged in the Gulf War. Mm-hmm. Patriotism in America is its fever pitch.
Yeah.
And Whitney Houston takes the stage and she sings our national anthem. Those of us who were there, there wasn't a dry eye on the place. Tears streaming down everyone's cheeks, and we remained standing for 2 minutes after she finished the national anthem with the flyby, chanting, awesome. Whitney, Whitney, Whitney. I don't know if you've ever heard Beyonce sing the national anthem. I don't know if you've ever heard Celine Dion sing God Bless America, and she's a French Canadian. These are extraordinary superstar entertainers. Yeah. Yolanda rose to that occasion, brother. She was so awesome when she finished.
That's so awesome.
Everybody had tears in their eyes, and we're chanting, Yolanda, Yolanda, Yolanda. She comes off stage, sits down. I'm introduced as the speaker. How did I start my speech? Is Yolanda an administrative assistant? I wanted to say to this whistle dick, but I didn't. I said, is Yolanda an administrative assistant to this CEO who happens to be an extraordinary, amazing professional entertainer? Or is Yolanda an extraordinary professional entertainer who happens to be an administrative assistant? Who are you? So I played football for 13 years. You know my story. I was paralyzed for 14 months. I went to 16 doctors, 15 of whom told me I would never recover, I'd never get any better. Yeah. And now that I've recovered and fought my way back to a 95% recovery, the 3 most frequently asked questions are pretty powerful. Number 1, Clark, you must have hit rock bottom. Were you depressed? No, there's a giant difference between being depressed and being disappointed. Giant difference between being depressed and being discouraged. I didn't hit rock bottom no matter how bad life gets, no matter how hard things go or how hard things get. Nobody ever hits rock bottom. We hit rock foundation. We hit rock belief. We hit the baseline core values and governing principles on which we were raised. The things that have never changed.
Yeah.
And so part of my process in recovering was to figure out who I was and what I believed.
Yeah.
And the only way that I could start my recovery, paralyzed for 14 months and then another 6 months to come back, was to realize that football was just what I did. It's not who I am as a man. And when we identify ourselves in terms of what we do instead of who we are, we become a human doing instead of a human being. Unacceptable of significance is what we seek.
Dude, that's great.
So the second most frequently asked question is, Clark, why did I keep going to so many different doctors? I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better. Who reminded us, all of us, who taught us that knowledge is power, but it has no heart. Bam, truth bomb.
Exactly.
We don't learn to know, we learn to do. All the information in the world isn't going to make a person successful. It's like the guy who has 3 PhDs, one in philosophy, one in psychology, one in sociology. He doesn't have a job, but at least he can explain why. So my point is, in sales, in life, reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. And then the third most frequently asked question is the direct answer to your question.
Yeah.
What took me so long to recover? I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. And once we answer why, I figured out the how to becomes clear and simple. And here's the answer to your question. My recovery was not a rah-rah.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you a great communicator. That doesn't make you a motivational speaker. That doesn't make you an extraordinary leader. Come on, cowboy up, get up and go again. You can if you think you can. Let's take the hill. Your why has to be bigger than your why not, or nobody's going to follow you. Nobody's going to be enticed or inspired to buy what you're selling. So physiologically, when we only engage the head, when we only ask and talk about the what and the how, we're shallow, we're transactional. When we only engage the head, the brain. But when we add to that a passionate why and a compelling want, which is our reason, and our why is bigger than our why not, it connects the head with the heart. And physiologically proven, our blood pumps more rapidly, our brains fire, and our muscles magnify, which maximizes our performance. So that's sales 101 from a storyteller's perspective. So when we get back full circle to the essence, the bottom line, the never-changing principles of communication, it all begins with what I said. First and foremost, who are you? Next, why do you wake up in the morning, and why should anybody care? Because we don't buy what people don't buy what you sell, they buy what you believe. They don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and why you do what you do, and what you believe is your story. So it's proven that people resonate and are inspired more by our mission, vision, purpose, and why we do what we do than our features and benefits of our products. And once we understand those mindset and heart sets, we can work on the skill sets of eliminating the ums, knowing how you're going to, the 8 elements of structuring a speech and all the things that we can get into if you're interested. But I really think listeners could benefit from the idea of, in any level of communication, we have to first and foremost ask ourselves, who are you?
So good.
What do you believe? And then realize that when we're successful, when somebody reaches the level of your success and the level of Andy Elliott, people expect us to deliver the story at the same level of excellence that created it. Let me repeat that. When we become successful, when we want to sell a product or service, when we want to coach someone, we want to mentor someone up, people will expect us to teach them how to deliver their story at the same level of excellence that created it. And that's what we talk about in my book, Story Selling. That's my course. That's what I want to do with everybody in Andy Elliott's army. I just know the value in taking the incredible skill set and formula and techniques and time-tested solutions that Andy has honed all these years, and then just take it a little bit further to the tip of the spear, where now you inculcate the power of the 6 brain chemicals to really figure out a way to influence people's decision making based on one other thing, since I'm on a roll. The purpose of a leader is to grow more leaders who believe what you believe, not generate more followers. And as that incubates and percolates, let's bring it into sales, the LA Army.
Come on.
The goal is not to do business with everybody who wants what you have. The goal is to do business only with those who believe what you believe, so they
Agreed.
choose you, not just somebody who does what you do.
Yeah, that's right.
So how do you get people to choose you? It's based on how you make them feel. People don't remember what we say, they remember how we make them feel. And when you can understand and master the 6 brain chemicals, which allows you to choose the right story at the right time, to tell it at the right place for the right reason, and you can control which of these 6 brain chemicals, adrenaline, endorphin, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and cortisol, which one you want to trigger, you can watch someone's countenance change, you can watch them lean forward, you can watch them figure out what the benefit in engaging with you and your product and service, and they close themselves. It's magic,
Dude,
but it's
awesome.
also science. So I'm just fascinated by it. I've spent my entire career studying it, doing it, and that's why I'm in the Hall of Fame.
Yep. Yeah, clearly this isn't the first time someone asked you that.
Actually, it is. Yeah, the drugs that I took.
It's
back
first
in the
time,
late
first
70s
first
were just
podcast,
starting
folks.
Yeah.
Nah, dude, that was amazing. But you're so right. Like, cause you know, I remember when I first got asked to speak, the first thing at first, you know, you're like, oh my God, like, what am I going to talk about? Blah, blah. And finally you realize, you're like, dude, I got to know me. You got to know your message. Because if you're up there trying to pretend to be somebody you're not, that's the worst. That you know when you see a speaker like that, you know? And I think somebody who's not even prepared, like, for example, you know, me and Andy were just talking about this the other day. There's like, you know, there's a strategy side to like growing a brand and like attracting an audience, building an audience. And then there's like an identity side. You know, and like they're 2 different things, and like we're just now figuring out the strategy. We didn't really even have a strategy, but he always knew from day one who he wanted to be and who he didn't want to be. You know, but I think like paired together, like you said, it's like a dangerous combo, dude. When you know both.
I'm telling you what, too many people out in the world are transactional friends,
Yeah.
transactional leaders, transactional speakers, and they only talk about the what and the how. They kill you with the PowerPoint. They got 1,962 slides in 14
Yes.
minutes. Or the guy who turns off the camera and just grabs the microphone and gets in the audience like Andy and says, hey, let's talk. And by the way, you're out of shape. I think you should, you know, get at least invest in a membership. He calls people out
Yeah.
because he can.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had to change my shirt 17 different times trying to find one that made me look more buff than I really am, just so I could come to his office.
Welcome to my everyday life.
Yeah. I remember getting a picture with Andy. I almost passed out sucking my gut in that long waiting for the camera to focus, man. He's a tough dude.
Yeah. Hey man, you didn't play around, dude. Well, hey, I want to talk about the tactical, dude. You said a lot of great stuff. Like you really kind of laid the foundation for speaking, right?
Okay.
So tell me about you talked about the 6 brain chemicals. So are you implying that like any public speaker should have 6 stories in their Rolodex?
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So the best way to do that is to not be somebody that you're not, like you said. What you want to do is evaluate your life. There's 4 sources of content creation, 4 sources of material where we find our material that everybody on this planet has access to. Because when I coach clients, the first thing they say is, I don't have cool stories. I've been up into space, dude, for 5 hours, saw the curvature of the earth. And I ran the Olympic torch. I've raced and won at Nürburgring at Daytona. And my paralyzing injury, I mean, I've flown all the fighter jets and bombers. If you watch the movie Top Gun Maverick more than 10 times like me, I flew that F-18. I did every single thing that you saw in that movie, man. I've had some extraordinary experiences. People are, man, I don't have any stories like that. The number one thing that holds people back is they're like, I think I have to like have my head cut off and still speak fluent French in order for me to be inspirational.
Exactly.
No. Everybody listening and watching this podcast has extraordinary experiences. Your heart's different than my heart. Your significance is different than my significance. Let's just be honest. You don't compete against others. You compete against what you're capable of. Your life matters as much as mine. So what we've got to do is identify the 4 sources of material creation, content. Number 1, our life. Have somebody interview you when I'm working with you one-on-one so that we can wave this Brendan flag that, my gosh, now look at him. He's just so freaking articulate and amazing.
Yep.
And Andy, it goes,
full
Clark,
butterfly mode.
Yeah, there you go, baby. The caterpillar, and then he'll be flapping his wings as a monarch here when I get through with you.
That's right.
But so I'm going to interview you. But most people just need to find someone to interview them. Tactical. Go to a community college, find the professor who's over the communications department, maybe creative writing, and ask him or her to give extra credit to a young man and a young woman, so you get both perspectives of students in their classes, with the auspices that they're going to come and interview you to write an article for Forbes or Inc. or Sports Illustrated or whatever, that might lead into a book. And you want the male perspective and the female perspective.
That's good.
And they record your interview, send it to an app, you get a transcript, now you've got a document from which to work. And you record your stories. I've written 5 speeches for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and I wrote his TED Talk. It was the #1 TED Talk for 30 days.
Let's go.
Anybody into Dancing with the Stars? I wrote Derek Huff's TED Talk. Paula Abdul, Donna Maria Osmond, Diamond Dallas Page, Hank Haney, Tiger Woods golf coach. I've written all these keynote speeches, helped them get their book deals, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So interviewing them is so critically important, because that's the first source. The second source is so cool. Transitional experiences.
Okay.
Anytime we move from something to something else, graduating from elementary school to junior high to high school. And some of us had a little bit more of a struggle. The 3 years I was a junior in high school almost killed the whole faculty. I'm a dumb football player. My cholesterol counts higher than my SAT score. But you have transitions.
Yeah.
Getting your first job, or graduating from high school, going to college, or going to tech training. Getting your first job, losing your first job. Falling in love, falling out of love. A divorce, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job. Transitions. If your parents were in the military and you had to move every 2.5 years, that's a transitional experience, because you never had close friendships in high school because you knew you were always going to have to say goodbye. So everybody has them. Make a list. In a couple of my books, I've written 37 books, and every guru out there has their version of the balance wheel. So my mentor was Zig Ziglar, and he dissected life into 6 categories, and he titled them nouns which evoke no emotion: physical, mental, spiritual, social, financial, family. Same with Tony Robbins. So same with Brandon Burchard. Same with Dr. Norman Vincent Peale.
They all follow the same 6.
Yeah, they all have a balance wheel. I dissected life into 9 categories, and I titled them action verbs, so we have something to do. So instead of a physical goal, which could be anything, I titled it physical fitness, because we all know in Elliott Army, you don't go to the gym once. Continuous education. It's not mental, it's continuous education. Deeper spirituality. The coolest thing about Andy Elliott is that we've connected physically. I turned 70 years old on March 14th, and I'm staying in shape.
I know, dude.
I'm not as buff.
You look jacked.
Yeah, but when I was playing, and I was 6'5", 278,
Yeah.
bench way over 400. I'm just trying to survive, because now I feel so like I'm so skinny I have to jump around in the shower to get wet.
Well, we'll talk about that after. I got I got some stuff I'm going to give you from the Elliott Army.
Oh, good.
It's
I didn't know
get
you were
you
selling
jacked-
supplements.
jacked
This
in
is
90
good.
days. I'm just kidding.
But deeper spirituality, Andy, you talk to him, and he's this macho man. He's so focused on helping people succeed in the materialistic, monetary world in which we live. But his soft skills are: I love God, come to church,
Yeah.
humble yourself in prayer. So we have to wave that flag, and I say deeper spirituality, and the immediate audience reaction is, are you going to go religious? No. I remind people, religion is for those who are afraid. That's the wrong finger. Religion is for those who are afraid to go to hell.
Yeah.
Spirituality is for those of us who have already been there.
Oh, that's good.
So emotional stability, social networking, financial literacy, family togetherness, fun and recreation, and charitable giving. 9 categorical areas of life which
I love it.
inspire us to become the best that we can be. So now tactical.
Yeah.
You identify what you know in each of those 9 categories, and I guarantee you'll figure out what you're a subject matter expert in one of them. If it's physical fitness and you used to weigh 400 pounds, come and talk to me, baby. But don't just talk to me about some magic drug or some staple surgery. I want to know about the motion. I want to know how you recovered from being that bullied, ugly, fat kid to this macho human being who now believes in who you are and that you're supposed to be here.
Yeah.
So the deeper lessons. So you can figure out which one or more of these categories that you're a subject matter expert in. Now what that does is that allows you to ponder, go to a quiet spiritual place, ponder what you know about these categories, and I guarantee it will trigger a memory from your past, especially if you've already been interviewed, of a transitional experience that changed your stars, that changed your life forever.
Yeah.
That's worth sharing. You don't just share a story, you always have to tell a story for a reason. The third area in which we find our content and develop our material is the significant emotional events. These are really important. Definition of a significant emotional event, psychologists call them C experiences, SEE. A significant emotional event is an experience where we can actually quantify and measure what we thought and believed and how we acted and behaved before it occurred, and how we now think differently and act and behave differently because it occurred. So the two operative words are before and because, before and because. So a divorce is a transitional experience.
Yeah.
An ugly, devastating divorce is a significant emotional event. So I flew into town. My primary residence is in Utah, even though I live here in Gilbert. And I was in town, my son's very best friend since 10 years old, and I coached him in football, basketball, and baseball. His dad suddenly had a heart attack and died a week ago.
Wow.
And so I obviously went to the wake, the viewing, and then I went to the memorial service celebration of life yesterday before I flew here to be on your podcast. That's a transitional experience for me because I knew his dad.
Yeah.
And he was on the chain gang, in the football stadiums, and I knew him and interacted because his son was best friends with my son. But a significant emotional event is to his children, his 4 kids who lost their dad unexpectedly. And his son, Cody, who's my son's best friend, it was just in tears. He gave me the biggest hug, the same hug we got when we won the state championship. So to him, the same experience to me is a transitional experience. To him, it's a significant emotional event. Especially 2 weeks from now when all the flowers die and all the support from family and friends has dissipated and he's by himself going to work, kissing his wife and his 4 little kids goodbye, wondering if he's going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Significant emotional event. So I was paralyzed for 14 months. I had throat cancer when I was 8. I've had 3 surgeries since I was hospitalized with COVID. I almost died over Christmas in 2019. I've had some crazy experiences.
Yeah.
So we all have had them. And then the fourth source of content development, of content creation, is just a bucket list turning it into a living list. So I challenge you, I challenge anyone in the sound of my voice to make a list, number 1, of individuals that you would love to meet and especially interview, whose information will turn decades into days and actually build your credibility as someone who knows what they're talking about in sales and customer service, in auto mechanics and auto racing and ski racing, and winning a political campaign, whatever the case may be. Make a list of human beings. And in the 6 degrees of separation, if you go to my website, danclark.com, you'll see I've interviewed all the most famous people on our planet. Sir Richard Branson, Elon Musk. The list goes on. I've been wined and dined in the White House. Best friends with Sheikh Nahyan, the grandson of Sheikh Khalifa, United Arab Emirates. I know Andy just got back from Dubai. That's my stomping grounds. I've spoken over there so many times. Been at the palace so many times.
Love it.
But that's because of the 6 degrees of separation. I mean, you make a list of people whom you can serve. You turn every sales pitch into a serve pitch. You go to a networking event, not with your stack of business cards and your personal agenda. What can people do for me? What can I get out of this?
Yeah.
You show up with, how may I serve you? Tell me about your family. How can I help you take yourself from where you are to where you want to be?
Yeah.
So you leave me saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again.
That's so great, dude.
So make a bucket list of people. Next, make a bucket list of things you want to do. I've dropped those truth bombs in every interview that I've flown all the fighter jets and bombers, and I'm not in the military. And all my military buddies, especially the fighter pilots, are like, Clark, you have more hours logged in these fighter jets that I've never been in. How'd you do that?
Yeah.
I've given over 350 free speeches to the military. That's how I serve my country. You want me to go to Iraq and Afghanistan? Yeah, I got to fly in a helicopter. We get shot at. That gives me a freaking story. And it's captured on GoPro, so you don't think I'm full of crap.
Yeah.
But make a list of cool things that you want to do, places you want to go, adventures you want to go on.
Love it. Yep.
So if Andy has an elite cruise, I don't want to just go and listen to Andy Elliott speak. If I can hang out with the Brotherhood in an isolated place in Cabo, or we all meet up in whatever, and we can have that experience, that's worth the investment. It sounds like I'm selling you on your surf pitch. Before I get out here, I got to go get a night job at a paper route. But the 4 sources of content give us absolutely no excuse. I can't tell stories. I don't have a cool enough life to be on stage and connect with people.
So
wrong. And then let me just throw out the 3 M's that we talk about in my books: story, selling, available wherever good books are sold.
Let's go.
The 3 M's. What's your message? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let me help you. Tactical. What would you drive, Brendan, 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free? Okay, now let's talk about monetizing. If you wouldn't, you can't be a professional speaker.
That's right.
Flights canceled, you're just using an excuse. Inclement weather, I couldn't make it. You can check out the news, the weather station.
Yeah.
I've never missed a speech since 1982, bro.
That's
6,000
awesome.
speeches, 76 countries, and I've never missed a speech.
Well, let's go.
And the reason
That's
why
amazing.
is not because I'm such a noble man. I have integrity and trust, obviously. But it's because I was hurt so deeply, physically and emotionally paralyzed. Suicidal ideologies. I was at the top of my game, projected #1 draft pick by the Oakland Raiders. Had my meeting with Al Davis, my letter, the photos, the whole deal. And I'm paralyzed in one day. I was a right-handed pitcher, invitation tryout by the Kansas City Royals, a baseball pitcher out of high school. My athletic world was my world. I knew nothing else. It's how I got my identity. It's how I got my attention.
Yeah.
One day it was taken away from me.
It's insane.
I was so decimated, so devastated. I know for a fact, Brendan, that there's at least one man and one woman in every one of my audiences who is hurting as badly as I was. And if I can tell a story at the right time for the right reason in the right place and connect authentically to keep somebody from killing themselves, to save a marriage, to kickstart somebody's entrepreneurial dream, that this is really important to me. Remember, there's no such thing as a financial crisis, only an idea crisis. Ideas create income. We got to inspire people to invest and get rolling.
Yeah.
If my story, if my presence in their space can elevate them so they leave saying, I like me, that's what I'm with you, I want to see you again. How dare I not drive 5 hours one way to say that to somebody for free? So that's the question. It has to be a calling.
Yeah.
The tip of the spear question is, okay, if you had 1 hour to live, what would you say to your family? What would you say to your friends? What would you say to, you're speaking in front of the Elliott Brotherhood and you've got 1 hour to live, you got cancer, you go to the hospital. What are you going to say? Are you really going to talk about money? Are you really going to talk about, here's the strategy to make more money and be a better salesperson on Tuesday?
Exactly.
No freaking way.
No.
So once you figure that out, then it helps you focus in on, okay, take all of your life experiences and now consolidate it into a 60-minute keynote mindset of what you would say if you were given 60 minutes to speak. And that's the first of 3 M's. What is your message? Who are you? Why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
What do you believe? Give me that story, a reason to believe in you, to choose you, not just somebody who does what you do.
Yeah.
The second M is so beautiful. Who would benefit from your message? Oh, wow, teenagers, college students, sales professionals, healthcare professionals, realtors tomorrow, financial advisors and wealth managers, military commanders. Does not matter. Who would your message? Who would benefit from your message? And then number 3, the third M, marketing. Where do they gather? At an Andy Elliott event, at a school,
Figure out your audience.
at college, exactly. And then you figure out, once you've identified those 3 M's, you're up and running going, wait a minute, my message matters. I know who would benefit from it. Now I just need to figure out a way to market and successfully sell my thoughts, my beliefs, my solutions, my calls to action to that specific group. And when they know the value proposition is real, they will pay you to come and speak. You don't have to pay to be on some stage because you're going to sell, flip. No, I've never done that in my life, and I refuse to do that.
Love that.
You have to become the best speaker, the most amazing, most compelling speaker you can possibly be. And then word spreads and they invite you and say, what's your speaker's fee? My honorarium's $25,000, and I've been doing that for 1,000 years, 52 minimum speeches a year.
Come on, baby. Let's
Come
go.
on, baby.
That's what I'm
And
talking about.
I'd be driving a Lamborghini like Bradley, except when I got in his, it took me 36 minutes to get my fat butt out of there. It does not
bro,
work.
Not comfy.
I rented a
No
Ferrari in Maui, and I got in, and this windscreen came up to right there. I looked like Mr. Potato Head. It's not my sports car, so I got to figure out a way to use my money on something more productive.
Dude, that's great. Okay, I got a tactical question for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Right? I don't know if you ever heard this before. So you know how they talk about in storytelling, they talk about the hero's journey?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So do you believe that when you're telling a story, like in a keynote, for example, you should go to one rock bottom? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because what I've noticed, like a big mistake a lot of speakers make is they tell like multiple heroes' journeys, like it gets kind of confusing. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Have you ever ran into that before?
Yeah. You know, and sometimes we do that because the way our minds work, we're on a line, just like I've done today in the interview, and I'll go off on a little tangent, but as long as I bring it back, then it makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay?
Dude, I feel like that right there is one of the main mistakes like a potential great speaker makes, right? Is like ADD. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're like you get fired up and you get people fired up, and throughout your speech, let's say you get 60 minutes, there might be like 5 times throughout that 60 minutes where people were like really feeling it.
Yep.
But you didn't stay on track. So like you didn't really drive home one point.
Okay, so that's such a great question, Brent. That's so beautiful. I'm impressed with your astuteness.
Appreciate it.
So the reason why we focus in on storytelling is because a story is polished. A story has a hello and a goodbye. A story, you've already gone in, as we learn as songwriters in Nashville, you edit so every word pays its own way. You reduce the redundancy. You make every story, my solution, my system, you make every story funny. Find the humor. You make it evocative, so by adding a quote. And you add emotion so people remember it. And then you write it out so you can actually see how long it is.
Yeah.
And you can even ask ChatGPT, not to help you write the story, but to ask it, or not ChatGPT, yeah, I guess. How many words should you have in order to deliver a 3-minute speech? How many words for a 15-minute speech? And it will give you the exact quantified number of words. So now you go in and say, okay, this story is going to take me exactly 3.5 minutes to tell. That's important to your formula.
That's
and then
great, dude. That's a great
you
tip.
practice telling it 3 to 5 times, and your brain is so powerful. It's a steel trapdoor library. It remembers everything we see, smell, feel, touch.
Yeah.
So now once you've logged it in there and you've told it so many times that it's conversational, then you never ever have to worry about your ADD, ADHD, QRXT, UVW screwing up your presentation. Because those are the segue moments that link one story to the next. So once you start telling the story, you never go off on a tangent.
That's
you
so funny.
keep
Your brain
the
knows.
thought.
Yeah.
You keep the audience engaged. For example, if I was going to talk about support, and I said, "Guy, we got to be there for each other. You got to support each other."
Yeah.
People are like, "Yeah." They won't remember that.
Yeah.
But if I said, you know, a mother encourages her daughter to come home as soon as school is over. The time comes, the time goes. 30 minutes later, daughter walks in through the front door of her home and her mother scolds her. "Where have you been? I've been worried sick." She says, "Oh, Mommy, I walked my friend Sally home. She dropped her doll on the sidewalk. It broke all to pieces. It was awful."
Yeah.
Her mother says, "So you're late because you stayed to help your friend pick up the pieces of the doll and put it back together again?" She says, "Oh, no, Mommy, I didn't know how to fix the doll. I just stayed to help her cry." I just made it emotional. People will remember the story, and I guarantee every guy in that audience is going to want to go home and share that with his wife or significant other, and
That's
vice
great,
versa.
dude.
Want to share it with their kids.
I
It's a
love that.
powerful story.
Yeah.
So if I was talking about self-competition, got to compete against yourself. Come on, you got to compete against yourself. Yeah, rah, rah. We'll add a quote to make it evocative. Einstein said everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its entire life believing it is stupid. People are like, "I get it. I'm not going to compete against that.
Yeah.
I'm going to compete against what I'm capable of."
Yeah.
And then you've got to bring in the humor. You absolutely have to bring in the humor. So, for example, tomorrow when I speak to this real estate company, because they want me to talk about the hero's journey, how do you get from where you are to where you want to be? I need to lay the foundation. So I've already thought it through. I've got one of my 37 books, my joke book, my humor, my collection of humor. You got to get that one. It's just over almost 200 time-tested, clean message jokes. I'm so proud of that. My favorite joke. So because of the theme and the purpose of them gathering together, they're high achievers. I'm going to say, you know, when my Aunt Lucy was 63 years old, she started walking 5 miles every day. Now she's 91 and we don't know where she is. And we laugh. But the number one limiting belief that holds us back from accomplishing our goals is focusing on a future outcome instead of staying present in the process and answering, where are you right now? It's like ordering an Uber ride that requires that you enter in your current location, and if you lie about where you are, the directions won't work. Bam! They get it. They're like, okay. So now I say, where are you right now? Physically, my 9 categories. I can go anywhere I want. Okay, so the question is still on the table. How do you avoid going off on these tangents, and how do you stay true to yourself? So what you got to do is You structure your speech in the 8 elements, tactical elements. We cover that in my book. My book, Speak Like a Pro. I've taught public speaking at the MBA level.
Dude, your
for
book
11
sounds
years.
super informational.
Yeah,
Dude.
yeah. It's not just Mother Goose in it. I have story illustrations, but we talk about the tactics, not just the strategic, the tactical.
Yeah.
But what we got to do is we got to focus in on the 8 elements of organizing and crafting a Hall of Fame speech that listeners love. Difference between talking and teaching. Difference between confusing activity with accomplishment. I'm all that. It's about me, and I'm going to speak and get the standing ovation nod.
Exactly.
Okay, so the first of the 8 elements, which we cover, outside introduction. Now let's just talk for a second about outside introduction. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because it answers your question: how do you stay on course? How do you stay on course? Most people who use slides are unprepared because they have to narrate the slides to keep them on point. Are you freaking kidding me?
That's true. Do you use slides or no?
No, I just put up a slide. I'd show, hanging out with Michael Jordan and flying into space, and people go, okay, if you don't take a picture, it never happened.
That's right.
And too many people are full of crap out there. They spend millions on a website and they have no life experiences. So why not back it up?
Exactly.
If I'm gonna flip, if I was at Muhammad Ali's house as a house guest for 5 hours, and I was the state Golden Gloves boxing champion, he was my hero, and I teach what he taught me, they want to see me like sparring with him in his living room, don't they?
Exactly.
Yeah. So slides only for a purpose, but outside introduction answers a very important question. So let me pause for a second. You're going to think I'm ADD right now. But in my books and in my teaching, I talk about the speaker's triangle, and this is relevant to the answer to the question.
Nice. Speaker's
triangle is an inverted triangle which visually gives you a funnel. You answer question number 1, question number 2, it begs question number 3.
Mm.
Every person in the world craves the answers to 3 questions: one-on-one, 1 on 20 in a boardroom, 1 on 20,000 in an arena. You've been to my website, you can see I've spoken to 40,000 people.
Yeah.
Everybody craves the answers to 3 questions. Number 1, why should I listen to you?
Yeah,
Have you done it, and are you currently doing it? It's the credibility piece.
Mm-hmm.
Question number 2, can I do it too? With my past, with my weaknesses, with my limitations, and with my strengths. It's the possibility piece.
Yeah.
And if we answer credibility and possibility, it's not about you, it's about them. Seek to bless, not impress.
Yeah.
If we answer credibility and possibility, it begs the answer to the question, how do I do it? What is your system, Andy Elliott? What's your system, Brenda? Why?
That's great.
And is it worth it to me? How do I get from where I am to where I want to be? It's the value proposition.
Yep.
And that's the usability piece: credibility, possibility, usability.
Do you reveal that bottom one during a speech?
Oh yeah, that's the call to action.
All 3 of them?
And all 3 of them. You have a test close, and you say, okay, well, did this matter? Okay, so here's the takeaway, blah, blah, blah. So before the podcast's over, I would like to give your listeners a free gift if I can. I want to make sure they have that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Anyway, with those 3 questions in mind, the speaker's triangle, now let's go back to the 8 elements of crafting a Hall of Fame speech. Element number 1, outside introduction. Why should I listen to you? And so you introduced me at the beginning of the podcast. It was one of the worst introductions I've ever had in my entire life. So I thought you would have maybe sucked up a little better than that. I could have sent you my 5-page resume, and you don't even give rats walkers. But it's the credibility piece. Yeah. So what I teach is that you've got to send me your bio, then we consolidate it and put it into a little 5 short paragraph. It's about a 60-second long introduction that someone actually reads that answers, why should I listen to you? Shh, are you freaking kidding me? Okay, talk to me. I'm here. Element number 2, it's called the inside introduction. So one of the things that I'm just fascinated by the Elliott Group and fascinated by you, bro, is branding. And there has to be absolutely no disconnect from your website, your messaging, your email, your social media presence on Insta or Facebook, your marketing, and what you show up as, who you show up as. So if I introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Brendan Whiting. He is the expert on dress for success, and then you show up dressed in a gunny sack and you look like a flipping complete whistle dick. People are like, there's a disconnect here. I'm not going to trust him. Why should I listen to him? There's no freaking reason.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now the branding.
Alignment.
Now the alignment, but it's all called inside introduction, and it's the first impression. 70% of communication is nonverbal. So what's the first impression? How are you going to dress? What's your brand? What's your image? What are you doing? Like I kidded Andy. I said, if you ever show up on stage with some long pants on, I'm going to rip them off, because that doesn't build your credibility to have little bulges in your jeans. Wear your shorts, dude. Show off your work out. That total credibility is part of his brand.
Yeah.
So then it goes into the first 60 seconds of what comes out of your mouth. So think about how I started. So there's 4 ways to start a speech. There's 4 ways to start every conversation in a social setting, in a sports bar. When you're on a date, you're lined up with some new babe, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
4 ways to start every conversation, which are the same 4 ways to start every speech. Number 1, you ask a question. You cannot not answer a question.
That's great.
Number 2, you quote a startling factoid statistic. Okay, so when I'm speaking to sales professionals, and I'm going to talk to these folks, the realtors, and when Andy finally invites me to come and speak to your group, which he will, I will quote, according to the National Survey Analytics, 44% of sales professionals quit by the first sales call, after the first sales call. 24% quit after the second sales call. 14% quit after the third call. 12% quit after the fourth call. That's 94% of sales professionals who quit by the fourth sales call, and yet 85% of our sales are closed between the 5th and the 12th sales call. Which means in order for us to get people to choose us, not just somebody who does what you do, to create the competitive advantage, we've got to do something on a daily basis to make ourselves more qualified and credible, more compelling to talk to, more fascinating to be around, with better stories to use as illustrations of why our benefits and features actually will work for them.
Yeah.
That goes back to story creation, content creation. Who are you? Why are you? How are you going to create ongoing stories and experiences by interviews, by adventures, by service before self, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So the second element is inside introduction. Is how you start in your first, it goes all the way to 5 minutes. So your first nonverbal communication, your first 60 seconds, into your first 2 minutes, into 5 minutes. And so you have 4 options in which to accomplish that. Number 1, ask a question. Number 2, quote a startling factoid or statistic to get some attention. Number 3, start with a joke. That's me. It gets my butterflies to fly in formation. Absolutely. Yeah. And number 4, just start with a story. Once upon a time. Yeah. So that's really easy. You don't stand up and say, I'd like to thank the Academy and, blah, blah, blah. You just stand right off. Yeah. So for example, this is an example I have in my books, Speak Like a Pro. If you're asked to come into a high school or a college and talk about drinking and driving, and you stand up and you say, I've been asked to talk about drinking and driving, every single one of those students are going to pull out their phones or go to 7-Eleven.
They're done.
Like, they're done.
Your hook was trash.
But if you started by saying 9 brand new shiny coffins were delivered to McKay Mortuary on Saturday morning.
You know what you just did? You created an open loop.
You got it. I use those words too, man. See,
I love that. I was gonna ask you that question.
Oh yeah, open loop, because it forces you to close it. Exactly. I just invited you to pay attention to my words, because you now are forced to close the open loop. We should have been talking about this 30 minutes ago.
Right?
You're such a genius.
Do a 4-hour pod.
I know, but think about it. The right things never change.
Exactly.
We're still back. We're still full circle.
Exactly.
Let's talk about things that don't change, and that's it. You create an open loop. But the science behind that is critical.
Yeah. Because
if you just start by telling a story, and you conclude, 9 brand new shiny coffins were delivered to McKay Mortuary on Saturday, and not one of these teenagers were drinking and driving. They were killed by drunk drivers. I mean, there's so many ways to just start the speech, so words matter. Anyway, so the third tactical element, the third of 8 elements to organize and craft that speech that listeners love, is called the thesis. And that's where you explain in 60 seconds. If you can't describe what you're going to talk about and the benefit of listening to you, in 60 seconds, you can't do it in 60 minutes. So we teach you got to create a thesis, which is the promise. So I'm so excited to be here. And in the 60 minutes that we have together, I promise that when you leave here, not only are you going to understand the system that will take your skill set of selling to the next level that's been perfected and proven by Andy Elliott, but you're going to leave as a master of the 6 brain chemicals, so you know that you can attach your storytelling to the skill set of closing the sale, of making the presentation, of creating the open loop, getting them to want to close it so they close themselves. And together we rise.
Yeah.
Then the 4th element is called structure, and that's where you actually say, and that's what keeps you online from going off on these tangents of ADD, ADHD, and blah, blah, blah. You see, there's a structure that keeps you going, and I have ADD, ADHD, and I'm proud of that. So does Richard Branson, so does Steve Jobs. Yeah. You know? So now you have the structure. You decide it's an acronym or if it's a numbering system. And, you know, I'm going to give you 4 points. I'm going to guide you through the 4 steps of blah, blah, blah. So people can keep score. Then the 5th element is social proof. That's storytelling, my favorite. Yeah. The 6th and 7th are interchangeable elements, visual aids, which are slides, and research database proof. So you got to have some sources and quote the sources for credibility so people don't think it's your opinion. And then the last 8th element is a combination of conclusion and call to action. They're not the same. Conclusion is emotional, and then call to action is what do you want me to do right now? Here's the QR code. This is what I want you to do. Yeah. I want you to, you know, we've got guys coming by. So, for example, I've spoken at a real estate summit every month for 9 months in a row. By the time the realtors or the real estate investors get there, they've invested in themselves 40 grand to be educated until they get to the summit that I speak at every year. And when they get there, they have a turnkey opportunity to invest in this property or that property. Yeah. It's the call to action. Why would they bring in a motivational speaker to prepare them to finally pull the trigger? So we build them up. We make sure their why is bigger than their why not, and then they have the opportunity to take advantage of the call to action. So far. So we teach those, and in my courses, you know, we have a 6-week online course called Speak Like a Pro, and I'm really proud of that. Can I give all your listeners a free gift?
Dude, throw it out there. Dude, you've been dropping bombs, man.
Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to go to your favorite server, your favorite, you know, Google, whatever it is. And I want you to type in Dan Clark 360, numbers 360, danclark360.com, and a contact page is going to come up. And at the top of that contact page is a little click button that just says send text. And what I want you to do is click on that, and I want you to give me your full name and your best email, and my team will email you a free course that I usually charge $1,000 for. And because I'm tied in with the Andy Elliott
come on, baby,
team,
free gifts.
I want you to take advantage of this, and that will give us an opportunity for you to kind of hear some of the stories that I've shared today on the podcast, but more importantly, share it with somebody else so that you always bring value, and they leave you saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. So I hope we can keep in touch, and I hope this isn't ending. I've still got 7 or 8 good hours of material, man. Come on, next question.
We're just getting started. Actually, you know what? You brought a master class today. Like, you've answered a lot of my questions, so I know a lot of people watching that want to learn how to speak are like just freaking in awe right now. And I've went through your book, Speak Like a Pro, and it's funny, like, you're refreshing a lot of this stuff for me, and even giving me more. You're going more in depth on them too, so it's good to hear. But a couple more questions. You're like real tactical stuff, right? First of all, I love what you said about the open loop, because that's one thing I've learned about storytelling, and that's the difference between, that's like how you get people on social media too. It's like whether it's on a stage or anytime you're in front of somebody, right? An open loop. If you can create an open loop, you have their attention, and I think that's what most people don't understand. Another question with the speech, right? Let's talk about a 60-minute keynote. Should your goal be to drive home one point, or is it better to drive home multiple points in a speech, or do you always aim to just, like, if I can drive home this one message and like?
Okay, so that's a great idea. So, I'm not an astrologist or a numerologist or anything, but I'm fascinated by the familiar numbers: 3, 7 days in the week, 3 witnesses, 10 commitments or 10 commandments, and 12 months out of the year. So there's a reason why Stephen Covey's book was called 7 Habits. There's a reason why, John C. Maxwell has a book, 21 Laws. My book, The Art of Significance, Achieving Level Beyond Success, the 12 highest universal laws of life-changing leadership. Yeah. So You want to come up with a magical number, and what the experts remember. Zig Ziglar was my mentor for way over 25 years in the art and science of public speaking. He's a world famous motivational teacher. We studied, how often do you have to add humor to a speech to keep people's attention? It was 5 to 7 minutes. It doesn't have to be a joke. It just can be a one line, like Zig would say. His smile was so wide he could have eaten a banana sideways, and everybody kind of goes, "Okay, I get it. That was a good, comic relief kind of fashion." But what we have to do is understand that most people recommend that you should have 3, no more than 5 points in any speech. So, for example, when I'm asked to come and talk about the art of significance, I always tell this story. So I finished my book tour, Art of Significance, Achieving Level Beyond Success, published by Penguin Random House. It's my flagship book, 30-year project. I'm really proud of it. It's kind of my definitive work.
Let's go.
And I realized after my 6-month book tour, the number one most frequently asked question was, Clark, what's the difference between success and significance? And I shared, well, it all started with a story.
Yeah.
Said I was in a conversation with one of my football teammates. He was drafted into the National Football League in the second round by the Philadelphia Eagles. After 2 years with the Eagles, he's traded to my Oakland Raiders. After 4 years in the league playing at the highest Pro Bowl level, one day he walks out of practice, quits, never to play again. Why? He loved being a football player, but he hated playing football. He got what he thought he wanted by focusing on what matters at the moment, competing against others. Nice house, nice car, nice income, nice toys, nice holidays. But because his inner voice and true purpose in life was misaligned with who he really was and what he had to do to become successful, he would never live a life of significance, and he would die with his music still in him. So bottom line, successful people get what they think they want, focused on what matters at the moment.
Yeah.
And those of us striving to live lives of significance actually want what we get, so we don't die with our regrets by focusing on what matters most, which is what lasts the longest.
You want what you get.
Yeah, and so we don't die with regrets and with our intentions and music still in us. So regardless of the length of speech, 10 minutes or 60 minutes, when they want me to talk about the art of significance, achieving level beyond success, I would tell that story every time because it lays the foundation. And that's when I speak to multi-level marketing companies, that's why they're there. They want a slice of the American dream, and they're tired of putting in the 8 to 5. They just want to make an extra $400 a month so they can afford to take their family on a vacation or get a new car or something.
Yeah.
So they love that. I'm not getting what I thought. I'm not liking what I'm getting.
Yeah.
I want what I get, so it resonates with them. But there's no way in 60 minutes that I could ever do justice to talk about all 12 universal laws.
Exactly.
So now I get on a pre-conference call, a phone call with the event planner. Ask them 4 questions to customize every speech. What's your theme? What does it mean to you? How'd you come up with it? What's your purpose of your meeting? Is it networking? Is it they qualified for a sales quota trip to Morocco, whatever?
Yeah.
Number 3, who are your attendees? What are their challenges? What do they do when they wake up in the morning? I want to know. What's their income? Number 4, what's your desired message? What's your expectation? How can I go to my repertoire of stories and kind of pinpoint what I can do to tell my stories to echo your messages? So I leave it and they say, Brendan, one smart cookie, he brought Clark in from outside the company. I said exactly what you were doing.
Yeah.
So based on the answers to those 4 customizing questions, I can go in to my 12 laws and say, they want me to talk about law number 1, obedience. They want me to talk about law number 4, trust predictability beyond hope and faith.
Yeah.
French philosopher Pascal said too many people live their lives hoping to be happy, but because they only hope, they never really are. They're waiting for somebody to ask them in the senior prom. They've never even taken the time to learn how to dance. So we can talk about those. Law number 6, focus on winning, not just team. So now I would say in my structure, I only have time to cover 4 of the 12 laws, and these are the 4 that I really know apply to you. So when you stick to the 3 points, the 4 points, the 5 max in an acronym, then you go into your repertoire and you say, okay, I'm going to make this point, this point, this point, this point, this point. So you keep it between 3 and 5. I've never gone to 5, and I've usually always gone to 4. Right now I'm at 3. Expand belief, elevate expectations, and empower behavior.
I love that.
But I used to talk about the 4 cornerstones. Answers are in the box.
And then each of those points, you
It's
have like
illustrated.
stories.
Okay, so there
You got
you
an
go.
inventory.
So now you got the 8 elements. 4th element is structure. Are you going to have a numbering system, or are you going to use an acronym?
Yeah.
Fifth element is social proof. That's the story. Now, when you decide if it's a 3-point system, a 4-point system, a 5-letter acronym, no more than that, each one deserves a quote.
Yeah.
Each one deserves some humor. Humor, let's just go in order. Humor, make it funny. A quote to make it evocative, and emotion so people remember it.
Mm.
So now you have a story. So if I'm going to help you with your keynote speech and you said you want 4 points, you need 4 killer stories that we polish and perfect.
I love that.
And meticulously edit so every word pays its own way, so you know where you put in the joke, you know where the punctuating pauses and the comedic timing, and you know the emotion. So for example, one of my most iconic stories, I'm the primary contributor author of all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. You got to know that one of my books.
Come on.
Yeah. So, mine were always the most popular stories that helped sell 400 million copies. You got to know that.
Let's go.
And so when we
I definitely screwed up your intro.
Yeah, I know, man. You did, man. So I'm glad I had an opportunity to kind of like brag on myself.
Hey, we're gonna edit one. We're gonna edit a
really big deal. Yeah.
We're gonna edit a different one in.
I thought coming to Elliot's office, I would have a moth spotlight and a fog machine. You guys have disappointed, Sean. I have no idea why you treated me like flipping dirt, man.
Come on, Sean.
Like, Sean, I pull up in a waste management green truck or something. You're like, dude, it's not all that.
Should've said
Bag of
something.
chips, man. Anyway, so when I don't even remember what the fuck.
Hey,
we were talking
podcast
about.
2 is gonna be fire, by the way.
I don't know. That's funny. Yeah, he's gonna be driving a Ferrari by the time I'm done. You're such a stud. You're so good, man. I don't even know what we were talking about now. It's like
Structure.
Hey, structure.
Yeah, structure. The stories. The
Yeah,
stories under each, like you were. Like,
Oh yeah. Okay. So
the 4. You pick your 4.
Okay, pick your 4, but then you have to illustrate each one with a story.
Yeah.
So what the most important thing is to amalgamate the stories based on how long they are. Remember, we talked about write it out, practice telling it, know exactly how long it's going to take you to tell it.
Yeah.
And that gives us an audible. So that if there's a crisis management issue with the event planner, because they brought in some little dude who won the state semifinal alto saxophone competition at the state fair, and he solos till 8:15. And the event planner comes backstage and says, man, we are so freaking behind. We are so out of control. We're cutting you back, Brendan, from 60 minutes to 30. You don't freak out.
You're prepared.
You say, okay, wait a minute. I've got these 4 points. I'm going to keep the same 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
I've got these 4 stories. Whoa. That last one is 7.5 minutes long. I got to call an audible, and I'm going to put in a shorter story to make my same point. So that's the beauty in my system, where we milk and have a repertoire of so many stories.
It's so good.
That it gives you options. This is a beautiful metaphor. You got to listen to this. So to become a great communicator, a polished professional speaker that we're talking about, that's your desire. That's everybody's desire.
Everybody's desire.
Anybody who's successful needs to make sure that you rise to the occasion and can deliver your story at the same level of excellence.
And by the way, just to let everybody know, like everybody at some point in their life, if they're achieving, or if they're after a great life, they're going to be asked at some point to speak publicly, and 99% of people aren't going to be prepared for that moment.
Exactly.
They're going to start getting ready at the day that call comes in, when they got a week to prepare.
Exactly.
If you learn this skill now, dude, game over.
Exactly. So here's what you got to remember. So in my system, when I interview you and we capture your stories, the metaphor, the mindset is you've got to think like a golfer. Because a golfer goes out on the golf course and you take 14 clubs in your bag. So no matter where the ball sits, in the middle of the fairway, in the sand trap, excuse me, or in the bushes, you can select the right club out of your bag to hit the ball exactly where you want it to go, the distance, the height, whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, so now the structure of a speech is the golf swing, because every famous golfer, every professional golfer, great friends with Tony Finau, great friends with Billy Casper, some of the old guys back in the day, no matter where the shot is, their swing is exactly the same. They change the tempo, but they change the club and keep the swing, keep the structure the same. So once we structure your speech and you have 4-letter acronym, 4 points, now you can pick and choose, plug and play different stories, different golf clubs, and keep that exact same speech structure. So no matter what happens, everything's good. Even if they cut you back from 60 to 30 minutes, you're like, okay, I'm still going to keep the same structure. Let's just change it up.
Yeah.
So now the goal is to get 14 polished stories in your repertoire.
So good, dude. So good.
And Yeah, I really want to talk to Andy. You gotta. With all due respect and humility, I know I can take him to the next level.
Yeah.
I just know I can because he can take me to the next level.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I know I can.
Well, you know what I love about you most, dude? I love the intent. You know what I mean? Like, I think speaking and just the way you approach life in general is all about your intent. You know, and like getting prepared to do a speech as opposed to just like kind of winging it is it's like the respectful thing to do when you have people's time and like their most valuable asset, which is their attention and their time, right?
You're so right. That's why I call it the privilege of the platform.
I love that. Yeah, and like, dude, I resonate with that hard because like I think the same thing when I go out to speak to people. The one shift I've had, right? Like I know little about speaking, especially compared to you, but the two things I've learned is one, that I used to go out and I used to think like, man, I want to try to make myself look cool. Hopefully all 300 people in this room, by the time I'm done, they think I'm cool. And that got me nowhere. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out there. There's 300 people. If one person I can change their life, then I succeeded today. And sure enough, last time I spoke, when I did that, I got a standing ovation.
You got it.
Because I came out and I didn't try to be anybody that I wasn't. Didn't try to, you know, like one of the things one of my teammates said to me when I spoke at the last seminar, they were like, you know your method. You just know your method. You don't get up there and try to pretend to be anybody that you're not. Because everybody else that spoke on our team, we had like a handful of our guys get on stage last event, and everybody else was kind of like fired up, like trying to be like Andy. And I came out and I cracked a joke. 30 minutes just gave value, and you know, and it was cool, man. And by the way, like speaking is the most fulfilling thing ever. The other thing I learned that you talked about is like building an inventory of stories. You know, and like you're giving me a lot.
Interrupt you. You don't prepare a speech. You prepare yourself to speak.
That's great. You know, but you talked about like you have a system around the inventory of stories, whereas I just, you know, like that gives me next level clarity, because for me, I've just been going out speaking and I just have a couple of them, but I don't know time. I don't know when to use them. I just kind of like, but I did know that, you know, I'm like, hey, I need to have some prepared stories and prepared jokes. And it's funny how you were talking about your brain kind of links things together. When I'm up there talking and I'm rambling, naturally like 4 or 5 jokes will always fall into my speech that are repetitive, and they always make people laugh. Like one of my favorites is, I'm like, you know, I remember when I learned about relationships, and relationships are like a bank account. I learned this from Stephen Covey, right? He talks about how, you know, you got to deposit before you can withdraw. The way I see it is like, if I'm coming to somebody and I'm trying to get money from them, but I haven't built enough value, that's like going to the bank when you got $200 in the bank account trying to pull out $1,000. It doesn't work. I tried it when I was 18. You know what I'm saying? I always say that one, dude, and it cracks me up because it's such a corny joke. But,
absolutely.
You know.
So that's what I do too. So people always ask me, how do I remember so many jokes? I can make people laugh in a room for an hour, just one joke after another, because that's what I do for a living. So you prepare yourself to speak. So I have jokes, I have quotes, and I have stories. So this is a real good question, bro, that you've posed in your own little way. So the way we inventory our stories and tie them with the significance of brain chemicals and how to trigger those brain chemicals to get the specific response we want from this person. Most people would reverse engineer and say, okay, I need a story that makes people laugh. I need a story that makes people cry. I need a story to make people donate. No, what you do is you just get your repertoire of stories from the interview. Random stories about being 9 and about 15. And, you know, Andy was the most popular kid in the 7th grade because he had his own parking spot. He drove to 7th grade. He was 21 years old. You know, he dated some of the teachers. You know, I'm just kidding. You're not even laughing. People in the, really, man, rewind that, honey. What we have to, okay, total brain damage again, sorry. So what we have to do is just list our repertoire of stories. And then once we have all of our stories and we've packaged and polished them and we know the life lessons, then we say, okay, which stories make people fire up? The adrenaline is the urgency drug. Oh, okay, now these stories will trigger adrenaline. Okay, now I want endorphin. It's triggered through humor and through pushing beyond our limits. That's why exercise is addictive.
Yeah.
Okay, which of my stories that I've already polished and perfected will trigger endorphin?
Love that.
Okay, now dopamine is checking the box. I can do what you've done, or I'm in the process of doing it too. Which stories do I have from my repertoire that will trigger dopamine? Serotonin is the recognition drug. When you compliment someone, how do you make them feel? Why do we have graduations? It's so that people can feel serotonin when their son, who's, in the seventh grade was a senior year for like whatever, if they get to celebrate, they send out invitations, serotonin.
Yep.
Which of our stories will trigger oxytocin, which is the love drug?
That's great.
Oh, I want to donate. Oh, I've got stories that are categorized and cataloged in each of these 5 categories. And then cortisol is the 6th brain chemical, which is a very negative, brutal chemical that we can trigger in someone based on guilt and shame. And so if you feel, the forces, if you feel the effects of cortisol and you want to flush your system, or if you know that someone has triggered cortisol, I've followed the program many times with guys who's, everybody leaves feeling guilty, especially in a church.
How many speakers do you think go out there to speak and they don't even know which one of these they're provoking in people?
They don't care. I just did a big deal in Jacksonville, Florida last week. Huge deal, national.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention their names, but they're 2 very, very well-known speakers. Guy and Dr. Woman, not a medical doctor, PhD. Huge names. And I'd never been on the program with the lady, and I'd only been on the program once with the guy for a while ago. He's a fellow Hall of Fame speaker. And I spoke twice. Yeah. You sell, when I got so much material, why not sell them a half a day instead of a 60-minute keynote? So I spoke to the leadership of this entire organization the day before. And then the rest of them came in for my opening keynote to kick off the conference. I freaking nailed it.
Love it.
The reason why I nailed it is because the day before for the leaders, they had 4 sessions from their top coaches. And I attended every single one of them. So when I gave my keynote speech, not only did I talk about what I learned from each of these 4 folks, putting them up on a pedestal, but I'd had lunch with the CEO, founder of this company, big billionaire dude. I had all these experiences to throw into my speech and nailed it. And these other 2 folks show up. They didn't attend any reception. They didn't customize it. They just whipped off speech A, used their slides. The doc, I bet she had, in a 60-minute speech, I bet she had 80 slides. Yeah. And they get the check and leave. It's about them. It's not about the audience.
And it leaves a feeling in people that attend.
Yeah.
And on one hand, they're starstruck and they're like, oh my God, but people that have done it a couple times are like, come on, man. I've been to so many events with Andy, and you can really feel the people who captivate the room, and it's always the people who roll up, speak, and then leave. It's like I don't know, you just don't hit the audience the same. People who are in the event, sat in on all the sessions, got to feel the frequency in the room and stuff like that. That speaker is going to kill it.
And the compliment I get is, I'm still a hungry little kid.
Yeah.
Why would I want to sit in my hotel room or just fly in the nick of time when I get a chance to hear this? I remember I was on the program in Bermuda. 20 people. They paid me my full speaker's fee, and the only 2 speakers were me and Colin Powell. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? So I called the event planner. He booked me a few times, and I said, hey, will you do me a favor? Will you make it a mandatory dinner for speakers? He goes, that's funny, Clark. I said, yeah, make it a mandatory speaker the night before this event for the speakers. Yeah. He goes, okay. I go to dinner with Colin Powell. It's just he and I for 2.5 hours. I'm hearing his stories. Oh my gosh. Next day, it was for 20 people. They flew him in on the private jet, I get $75K, and I'm like, they nickel and dimed me and wanted me to fly flip in the back of the bus.
You're like, I'm $50K.
Exactly, I should have charged more. You see, you create those opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you got to be there for the audience. It's all about them. And Colin Powell, he customized, he interviewed some folks. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to breakfast with Colin Powell? And I remember walking through the restaurant, and he's in there with about 7 or 8 of these young men and young women, and they're asking him questions, and he talked about that in his speech. Why not be real?
Love that. That's so cool.
So, yeah, this is my legacy. I want to coach speakers, but I don't want to just coach lame speakers who want to do it for the wrong reasons. I'm after the top 1% like you.
Yeah.
I'm after the top 1% like Andy Elliott and his brotherhood and everybody who's signed up as part of the Elliott Army. You're attracted. Jim Rohn said we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. We've all heard that. I add to that my twist, which is important.
Yeah.
When you put a hard to catch horse in the same field with an easy to catch horse, most of the time you end up with 2 hard to catch horses. When you put a healthy child in the same room with a sick child, most of the time you end up with 2 sick children. Moral of the story: to be disciplined, healthy, and significant, we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings.
Yeah.
So instead of looking about how much you have to pay, look about what the cost is going to be if you don't pay. And it's like the good mechanics commercial on TV. Come in for an oil change and a new oil filter, or pay me now or pay me later for a brand new engine when you smoke that sucker out.
That's right. Yeah, you know what? I heard something today. We'll end it on this. I heard somebody say, they said, it costs a lot to do it the right way, but it costs even more to do it the wrong way.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that. I just love that. I was like, oh man, that's great. That's so true.
I agree. It's so true. And remember, maybe my closing comment is, instead of asking about how do we deal with change, why not focus in on what has not changed and what will not be different in 10 years from now?
Yeah. Timeless.
And hopefully that's what we talked about on this podcast, are timeless communication principles. That it doesn't matter if you're a politician, if you're a religious preacher, it doesn't matter if you're a football coach, it doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a Fortune 100 company or a family-owned business. Like you said, we've got to be able to articulate the vision of our company.
Yeah.
We've got to engage and transfer that trust. The definition of sales is the transference of trust.
That's right.
We're hardwired to not trust strangers, so the quicker that we can create a stranger and turn him into a friend, a trusted advisor, or look at us as a trusted advisor, the easier it would be for them to close themselves in a sales transaction. You know that.
That's right. And I would add, they're not just timeless principles, but they're also like universal.
Yeah.
Like no matter what industry, no matter what area of life,
and
you apply them.
And international, bro. Yeah. So
international, man. They transcend every limitation.
You got it.
So, dude, this was awesome, man.
No, I'm so glad you had me. And
yeah, dude. Appreciate you coming on.
Hopefully you can have Andy watch it 6 or 7 times so that he knows I'm a really big deal. And
well, we're gonna put it out there, and dude, no doubt about it, we're gonna do some big business together, man. So appreciate you coming on, dude. You want to plug, like, drop your Instagram and?
Yeah. So my Instagram, Facebook is just Dan Clark Speak. Please follow me. But my legacy, I really want you to engage in this Speak Like a Pro opportunity. And you can go on my website at danclark.com and snoop around, Speak Like a Pro. There's, all the information and a registration you can get because of the Elliott connection. I'm sure we could sign you up for that 6-week course and give you just a killer discount. But just to refresh your memory about the free gift, go to danclark360.com and you're going to get a contact page that pops up. Go to the top where it says send message and just click on that and just give me your full name and your preferred website, your preferred email, and my team will email you this free course that I usually charge $1,000 for on leadership.
Come on, baby.
And because you just asked me to reiterate again, I'll throw in a 3-video series called The Art of Significance, which gives you kind of a quick start snapshot of my 12 highest universal laws of life-changing leadership.
That's what I'm talking about.
In my flagship book, and you'll see the stories, you'll hear the principles and the timeless truths, and keep in touch with me. I am so fired up to just leave a legacy of helping the top creme de la creme, top 1% in any organization in the industry to learn how to become better communicators. And then when we talk, I know all the secrets to getting paid to speak. I've made a fortune, made a great living understanding the privilege of the platform. And if that's your desire to be a pro speaker and to get paid to speak, I know all the secrets and I can help you do that.
That's my boy. Well, I'm going to plug in my info on that link.
Let's go. You got it, baby. Come on.
Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you so much. I can't reach that far. That's
give you a little shake.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, so thanks for watching. Go hit up Dan. He's the freaking man. And we appreciate you watching. Subscribe for more. Comment below your biggest takeaway. And share the pod. Let's go, baby.
Thanks.
See you guys soon.
Thanks so much, man.